Hi, this is Vijay Bambani, and I hope you're keeping your finger on the pulse of the market, you're riding the market gyrations profitably, and I've helped you trade better with my videos that I have been recording for you. I'd love to have your feedback, so keep writing to me, guys, and I will, as far as possible, try to accommodate all requests for videos on the topics that you choose. In this video today, I'm going to put out my thoughts on what if presidential candidate Joe Biden actually winds up winning the elections and occupies the White House as the US president. What will really happen? What can you expect in the financial markets? And will the financial markets behave in uniform action? Or will there be certain pockets where trading activity or investment activity will be more pronounced than the others? Do remember that the population of any country requires the same thing from any governor or any administrator or any ruler for that matter. They want greater education, higher emphasis on healthcare, peace, prosperity, economic well-being, job security, the works. To that extent, there is little difference in the policies, overall larger policies of both the presidents. It's just that pockets of certain elements of the population will gain relatively higher than the other neglected aspect. Which is why we basically need to see which segment will President Trump help, or which element of the population will President Joe Biden help more. To that extent, the policies are going to be K-shaped. One will help one segment of the American public, the other will obviously focus on the other remaining segment. So it's not really surprising that President Joe Biden is actually going soft on immigration laws, is likely to announce a greater degree of leniency where the number of immigrants being allowed into America from its borders are concerned, because these are the very segment of population that Trump has been dealing with a heavy hand. So to that extent, Joe Biden has given out a statement saying that he will allow up to 5 times more immigrants into America as compared to the number of immigrants that were allowed in the calendar year 2018. Also, he is likely to aid a lot more neighboring countries like Mexico, Honduras, etc., so that they can address their internal problems because of which citizens are escaping from their countries and coming into America as undocumented. Now, undocumented means illegal immigrants. They are arriving into America as undocumented immigrants and working in low-paid jobs. President Biden, if he's elected president, also assures us that undocumented illegal illegal immigrants in America will be dealt with fairly leniently if they've been paying their taxes and their background checks work out just fine. Even they may be allowed citizenship. So he's going to be going easier on immigrants, which is good news. I beg your pardon. Which is good news for the Indian IT sector. Since more and more people will be allowed to enter America, the Indian software engineers will have it relatively easier going for on-site software delivery. Now, Joe Biden also assures us that he will have a higher emphasis on healthcare, especially the frontline COVID workers. He will emphasize on post-COVID recovery and stimulus if he is brought into power. President Trump has been accused of taking COVID fairly lightly. As a matter of fact, there is a general perception that had the lockdown been enforced earlier, the number of casualties in the US, lives lost to COVID, could have been brought down further. So Joe Biden is capitalizing on this aspect and promising a higher degree of care where COVID is concerned. He's also, I'm sorry, I happen to be slightly under the weather. He's also assured us that American citizens will be able to avail of private or personal healthcare policies if they are not happy with the state health insurance. And the outgo or the premium paid for these private or personal health insurance shall not exceed 8.5% of their income, which is basically taking Obamacare a few steps forward. Biden also has plans of raising taxes on individuals and corporates to basically raise revenues of the federal government, and these taxes are likely to be focused on HNIs and companies rather than be uniformly slapped across the entire spectrum of taxpayers. Now, this has been somewhat of a concern with many people that Biden's presidency would result in a higher tax burden on investors. But reading into the fine print, you'll actually see that capital gains and taxes on dividends of the US investors will actually be raised only if they are netting $1 million or higher in a financial year, which means the rank and file US taxpayer is unlikely to come under these higher taxes. Biden also assures us that if he's brought into power, he would basically ensure that healthcare workers receive free personal protection equipment or PPEs, and the corona vaccine will be absolutely free. And Biden has plans to put in place the biggest economic recovery stimulus package after World War II. That's 3/4 of a century ago. And he plans $400 billion towards Buy American, which is basically the American consumers buying whatever is manufactured and produced in America, and $300 billion towards research and development as to how goods and services can be actually made more cost effective in America. The climate change aspect is another thing that Donald Trump has been accused of going easy on. Joe Biden basically is planning to spend on $2 trillion over the next 10 years and create 10 million jobs by changing the way Americans consume energy and also leave a carbon footprint in the atmosphere. So Joe Biden plans to put in place reforms that would make America net zero emission by the year 2050. There will be climate change policies which will be put in power and national security policies. $400 billion expenditure will be incurred per annum for research and development on clean energy. Most important aspect, which I think as a commodity trader, especially a trader who focuses on energy counters, Joe Biden intends to end subsidies for fossil fuels. Now, this means that natural gas and crude oil price will become more expensive in America as a means to deter consumption. America is the largest consumer of fossil fuels, especially oil. Now, it's also a swing producer of and exporter of fossil fuels. Now, if subsidies were to end, which actually mean that fossil fuel as a source of energy will no more be the preferred choice. As a matter of fact, if you've seen how the way the composition of the headline indices, the Dow, etc., is changing over time, you are basically seeing that energy companies' weightage in the frontline indices is actually being brought down. They are now going, as they call, green. So Biden is likely to be negative for energy in the commodity space, and therefore oil marketing companies, oil exploration companies, and the natural gas and crude oil per se in the commodity space might just go down in value. Biden also assures us that he will double offshore wind production by energy production by 2030, which is 10 years, which again means that renewable energy will be emphasized upon, and therefore fossil fuel consumption is likely to go down in Biden's tenure. Biden will also endeavor to ban offshore drilling in the Arctic, because we all have read many reports online and offline about how the polar ice caps are now diminishing, and drilling in the polar regions is actually attributed to a certain degree for this problem. So Biden plans to ban offshore drilling for energy in the Arctic cap as well as public land, which means, like I said, it's negative for oil drilling and marketing companies as well as for oil and gas. Zero carbon emissions in the power sector by 2035, and Biden also wants to restore electric vehicle tax credits and also create 5 lakh, which is 500,000 public charging stations in America. Now, which is going to be a big booster for electric vehicles and therefore negative again for crude oil and natural gas. Now, Joe Biden plans to raise federal funding in the K-12 education system, hike the pay of teachers, have more healthcare workers in its public schools, and raise the education standard levels in America. He hopes that having more educated children in America will add approximately $675 billion to the US economy by way of more educated citizens, more educated producers and consumers of goods and services, which is a positive step. Immigration policies of Donald Trump will be reversed, which is good for Indian techies, and I can see TCS, Wipro and Infosys actually hoping for a Biden victory to that extent. Like I said, he will allow 5 times more immigrants in America as compared to 2018, and also regularize undocumented or illegal immigrants. Now, Biden wants to raise $3.3 trillion by way of taxes in the coming 10 years by taxing corporates and HNIs higher. But subsidies will be maintained for senior citizens, first-time home buyers, and for families with children. So to that extent, it's not exactly a punitive kind of a taxing regime, but there will be selective raise in taxation. Biden is likely to work towards artificial intelligence, create new infra spends by up to $2 trillion, emphasize on expanding the rail and road network in America, and avoid excessive tariff routes to solving disputes with trade partners and trade allies, which means he is likely to be relatively softer on China and other trade partners of America where there are frictions currently. Now, I have a few reservations on this. If the Chinese are likely to have less antagonism coming in from America, I feel they might have a little more energy left to be more aggressive towards India. So there's a minor concern I have here, but time will tell whether these concerns are for real, or maybe I'm just looking too deep into something that shouldn't be. That I said time will tell. Now he's basically promising to be pro middle class rather than pro elitist. Now there's a perception in certain number of voters that Trump is actually helping the richer class get richer because he's a businessman, he's a billionaire, and it's the middle class which has been suffering. Let's also not forget that the stimulus package basically is coming in and flooding financial markets, especially Wall Street, with a lot of easy dollars. Now, if you remember what happened after the collapse of 2008, there was this event called Occupy Wall Street. The American public thought that the stimulus package or the free dollars were actually going into the top 1% of the rich Americans, and the poor and the middle class were getting next to nothing, which is something that I believe Joe Biden is looking to bridge or plug the leak, as you want to call it, and not alienate the middle and the lower class American citizens. So he's basically taking a tough stand on high net worth individuals and rich corporates, and trying to be pro middle and lower income groups. Now, taxes on individual or an average taxpayer will be raised from 37% currently to 39.6%, which is 2.6%. And like I said, dividends and capital gains will be raised only for those Americans who are making more than $1 million per annum or higher. Now, there is another proposal which is something that a lot of astute investors would have definitely been contemplating about. Now, taxes on unrealized capital gains at the time of death of a citizen. Now, this is a very important and critical proposal. Supposing I own an apartment which I purchased at 1 million rupees in my lifetime, and I happen to die. And at the time of my death, the apartment is valued at 2 million rupees. Therefore, I have not sold the apartment. It is on paper or an unrealized capital gain of 1 million rupees. Now, what Biden wants to do basically is, okay, the person is willing or gifting this apartment in his will and testament to his legal heirs, but we should basically tax the unrealized gains before the property changes hands or is gifted to the legal heirs or the family members of the deceased. Now, if you remember guys like Bill Gates, and definitely I remember the Oracle of Omaha, Warren Buffett, saying that the rich need to pay more taxes, including estate tax. Estate tax meaning death tax. The property that you leave behind to your legal heirs after your death, which is currently in India transferred free. So Biden is basically trying to bring in the death tax. Now, corporate tax slab is something Biden wants to raise from 21% to 28%, which is why the stock market is a little jittery about Biden winning. But over a period of time, I think people will realize that even President Trump was basically endeavoring to do somewhat of the same thing. If you Google search the spat between the US administration and Apple about the money that Apple was basically parking in Ireland, because Ireland had better and more manufacturing and investor friendly taxation laws as compared to America. And President Trump was muscling on arm twisting Apple to repatriate the money parked in Ireland and bring it back to America, where it could be taxed at a higher tax slab. So this is something that all administrations are expected to do. Only the degree and the percentage of taxes that they are planning to add on to the taxpayer will change. Biden happens to be a presidential candidate who wants to tax the companies higher than what Trump is planning to do. Now, another important aspect that Biden is willing to do is, or has promised to do, is that student debt, which has been student loans, which the students have incurred for the purpose of education and tuition, will be waived completely if at all the student is earning not more than $1,25,000, out of which $10,000 will be waived immediately when Joe Biden is brought into power. So as you can see, he's basically promising some more relief measures, like I said, for the middle class and the lower income slab taxpayer. Biden is also planning and promised to create infrastructure, especially low-cost housing for the unaffording and the homeless US citizens. Now, it has been proved that having a roof over your head basically creates some more free space in the minds of the taxpayer, and the person can focus more on healthcare and education, which basically raises the standard of living of the population. So this is again a positive, and construction companies can look forward to more orders from the Biden administration. Net, if you remember what happened to the commodity markets once Donald Trump came into power, and he started emphasizing on the slogan, "Make America Great Again" or "Buy American." This was called a reflationary rally in the commodity markets, called the Trump reflationary rally, where all base metal prices went up in anticipation of Trump manufacturing everything in America. The same process is likely to repeat itself, and in my videos, in my video of yesterday, I've emphasized how base metal prices are not falling in spite of the fact that inventory levels are building up. One of the reasons is that more and more localized production is anticipated in America, which is a gigantic market as a whole. So I think the financial markets might face initial bouts of volatility if Joe Biden comes to power, but net, over a period of time, life will go on. Continue with your portfolio investments, continue with your long-term investment activity. I don't think anything at the ground level has changed for an astute and long-term investor. Rest in peace, continue, and don't worry about anything at all here. On this assuring note, I bid goodbye in this video till we meet again in my next. Not before reminding you to click like on this video if you agree with what you saw, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and click on the bell icon to receive notifications about fresh videos. In the comment section, do let me know what you thought about this video and what you'd want me to record in my next. Help me reach out to like-minded investors and traders who believe in a 360-degree worldview and knowledge-based investments and trades by referring my video to your family and friends. Vijay Bambwani signing off for now. Thank you for watching. Do take very good care of your health, your family, your friends, your investments and trades. Have a very, very profitable day ahead. Bye-bye for now. Do not forget to subscribe to my free email newsletter, Fast Profits Daily, and get my free guide, How to Trade Markets Like a Pro.